A group of thugs from the cars stormed into the store, immediately shooting the store owner dead. This time, the victim was an innocent boy. A new member of the gang, though hesitant and terrified, ultimately carried out the brutal killing of the boy with a machete. The movie begins with Nick and Helen Hume living happily with their 2 sons. Their eldest son, Brendan, is passionate about playing hockey and continually improves his skills, even earning the title of the best player on his high school team, making the entire family proud. Meanwhile, Lucas, their youngest son, is compassionate and has a strong inclination toward the arts. Nick Hume, a businessman residing in North Carolina, enjoys a warm and joyful family life. Although Lucas and Brendan occasionally teased each other about their age and differences, the bond between the 2 brothers remained close and deep. Now, Brendan has become a professional hockey player competing in the NHL. Whenever there's a late game, Nick is always the one to drive him to the rink. Nick's joy knows no bounds every time Brendan scores on the ice, and he excitedly recounts the moment on the drive home. After one game, Brendan reveals his plan to move to Canada to advance his hockey career to the next level, bringing immense pride to the entire family. Nick fully supported and believed in his son's skills and strong determination. While driving through a neighborhood notorious for crime, 2 cars suddenly swerved dangerously close at high speed, making both of them uneasy. When their car ran out of gas, they had to stop at a gas station. While Brendan went inside the store to buy drinks, Nick took the opportunity to call his wife and share Brendan's future plans. However, the calm quickly vanished as a gang from one of the cars appeared, clearly intent on breaking into the store. The gang immediately shot and killed the store clerk, revealing their ruthless brutality. They followed a horrifying rule: any new recruit had to kill a random person to be accepted. Tragically, this time, the random victim was Brendan. The gang's new member, hesitant and full of fear, ultimately obeyed the leader's orders and killed Brendan with a machete. Nick, witnessing the horrifying scene, was overwhelmed with shock and unbearable pain. He was in a frenzy of panic and rage. He ambushed the attacker on the spot, while the rest of the gang fled in haste. Nick subdued the attacker and removed his mask to identify him. In a panic, the man tried to escape but was tragically hit by a car. Nick immediately rushed to his son's side and drove Brendan to the hospital, clinging to a sliver of hope. The entire family quickly gathered, but their hearts were shattered when they received the devastating news that Brendan had passed away. The loss and pain were beyond words. The next day, at the police station, Nick identified the killer as a 23-year-old man named Joe. Brendan's funeral was held on a gloomy, rainy day, intensifying the somber and heart-wrenching atmosphere. The pain remained unbearable, leaving Brendan's parents sleepless night after night. Footage of Brendan playing hockey played on repeat in their home, serving as a bittersweet reminder of the beautiful moments now lost forever. Lucas couldn't hold back his emotions and would break down in tears every time he reminisced about the cherished memories with Brendan when he was alive. Before heading to the police station, Helen urged Nick to do whatever it took to ensure the killer received a life sentence. The next day, Nick met with Detective Wallace and the district attorney, hoping to find justice for his son. However, his anger surged when the prosecutor informed him that the defense had proposed a plea deal for a reduced sentence due to insufficient evidence to take the case to trial. Worse yet, the security cameras at the gas station were broken, leaving no footage to support the case. Nick felt helpless and furious in the face of the injustice overwhelming his family. When Nick learned that Brendan was killed merely so Joe could fulfill a gang initiation fee, his fury only intensified. However, something unexpected happened at the pre-trial hearing. When the judge asked Nick to testify and confirm that Joe was Brendan's killer, he stunned everyone by refusing. He claimed that it had been too dark that night and he couldn't clearly see the attacker's face. Nick's decision left not only the judge but also his family and everyone involved in shock. Ultimately, the judge had no choice but to dismiss the case. As a result, Joe was released from jail. Stepping into the open air, he reluctantly lit a cigarette, trying to appear calm. At that moment, members of the gang appeared, surrounding and welcoming him like a hero who had passed the initiation test to join their ranks. They showered Joe with praise, and even Billy, the gang's leader, was full of admiration. Nick was watching them and might already be tailing their car. To celebrate Joe's achievement, he was rewarded with a prostitute and a handful of cash from Billy, symbols of the gang's recognition of his loyalty. Behind the facade of indulgence, Nick saw the cracks in a broken and ineffectual legal system. That night, Nick was seen searching for a weapon, determined to seek justice for Brendan on his own. He revealed to his family that Joe had been released due to a lack of evidence. Pretending he needed to retrieve something from the office, Nick quietly left the house, tracking Joe's whereabouts. When Joe stepped out of his home, he froze in shock, seeing Nick standing there, his eyes burning with fury. In a fit of rage, Nick charged at Joe, and a fierce struggle broke out between the two. The fight ended abruptly when Joe was accidentally stabbed by a knife. The sight horrified Nick, who stood there, watching Joe collapse in pain, haunted by what had just happened. Nick quickly jumped into his car and drove to a remote location. He threw the bloody knife into a river, hoping to bury the evidence in his guilt, but he couldn't erase the horrific memory of that fateful encounter. Worse, when Nick returned home, Helen quickly noticed the wound on his hand. Despite her anger, she silently handed him a bandage, her eyes filled with tears. They both broke down in tears, the pain and despair filling the room. Nick was now not only a victim of tragedy but also a murderer, the burden of guilt weighing heavily on him. Meanwhile, elsewhere, Billy went to see Bones, the leader whom the entire gang obeyed. Billy brought the money from the gas station robbery to report. However, instead of receiving approval, Bones grew furious when he saw the small amount of money. Finally, he coldly ordered Billy to leave. Billy went to the hideout, where his men were manufacturing crystal meth, using it as the gang's main base of operations. One of Billy's associates, Bodhi, delivered the news that Joe was dead. This news shocked Billy and made him furious. He stormed into his office, rage burning in his eyes. At that moment, Detective Wallace appeared and informed Nick that the man who killed his son was dead. However, when he saw Nick's bandaged hands, Wallace began to suspect that Nick might be involved in the incident and could be seeking revenge. Events continued to unfold, forcing both Nick and Wallace to confront painful and complex truths. At a bar, gang members sat drinking, remembering Joe as a loyal soldier. They discussed him, claiming that Joe had proven himself to be a formidable warrior. However, at that moment, Billy walked in, his face filled with anger. He scolded his men for not showing respect to Joe and ordered them to get back to work. While the gang members continued to discuss the possibility that rival gangs had killed Joe, a surprising revelation heightened the tension. One of the members mentioned that his sister had seen a man in a suit on the night Joe was killed. When asked for more details, she confirmed that the man was Nick, leaving the entire gang stunned. Meanwhile, on the street, Nick continued to hurt himself, completely unaware that Bodhi, a member of the gang, was quietly following him. Meanwhile, Billy stood from a distance, observing everything. Just as Bodhi was about to shoot Nick, he hurriedly used his briefcase to try and disarm him. Seeing this, Billy and his men immediately engaged in a gunfight in the middle of the street, causing chaos and panic among the bystanders. Nick quickly ran into a narrow alley, trying to escape the danger. As a group of thugs rushed in from all sides, Billy seized the opportunity, continuously firing at Nick, forcing him to abandon his briefcase and run faster to save his life. Billy shouted in rage, like a bloodthirsty monster, as if he had lost his brother to this man. Nick darted into a building, while the entire gang relentlessly chased him, refusing to let him escape. Finally, Nick ran to a parking lot, where he accidentally triggered a series of car alarms to distract the gang. He continued to the top floor, with the gang members chasing him, determined to kill him to end the pursuit. Nick found himself trapped in a car with one of the thugs, and as the car reversed, it crashed through the multi-story parking lot. Nick quickly managed to escape, narrowly avoiding the car heading straight toward him. However, the thug tragically fell to the ground and died on the spot. Soon after, Nick received a call from his wife, and upon hearing the news, he panicked as he discovered that Lucas had gone missing. Elsewhere, Detective Wallace arrived at the crime scene. There she discovered that the victim was a member of the same gang as Joe, which led all suspicions to fall on Nick. Meanwhile, Nick found Lucas at the spot where Brendan had been murdered. Lucas, consumed by grief, unleashed his anger on his father, accusing him of caring only about Brendan while completely ignoring him and his feelings. Nick tried to convince Lucas to leave the dangerous area and return home, leading to a heated argument. Finally, Lucas was safely returned home. When they arrived, Helen tightly embraced Lucas, tears streaming down her face, pleading with him to never run away like that again. The day Bodhi appeared at Nick's office, he brought the briefcase that Nick had dropped during the previous chase. Not only did he return the briefcase, but Bodhi also issued a threat, claiming that Nick had the right to know how he would die before being escorted out by security. When Nick opened the briefcase, he found a family photo inside. The photo clearly implied that the gangster was planning to massacre Nick's entire family, but not him. This horrifying truth sent Nick into a panic. In his confusion, he immediately called a number related to a case he had once investigated. Billy's number. Billy warned Nick in a threatening tone, "You've just signed your family's death sentence. If you come near my family, I'll gut you like I did with your friend. Do you hear me? He's not my friend, he's my brother." Without wasting another moment, Nick immediately rushed home, warning his wife and Lucas to stay inside. He then called Detective Wallace, his voice tense, reporting the situation and urgently requesting security assistance. When he arrived home, Nick Nick quickly locked all the windows and doors, causing confusion and panic among everyone in the house. Shortly after Detective Wallace arrived, she bluntly reminded Nick that he was the one who had started this chain of revenge, putting his family's lives in danger. Wallace demanded that Nick confess to the murder, emphasizing that the police were present to protect his family. However, Nick firmly refused, his gaze tense. That night, as the whole family fell asleep, Nick was awakened by the sound of car alarms blaring outside. He quickly realized the urgency of the situation when he discovered that the two security officers had been brutally murdered. In an instant, Nick realized that the gangsters had broken into the house. In the chaos, Nick fought desperately to survive, dodging a barrage of bullets from the enemy. With quick thinking and determination to protect his family, Nick not only shot one of them but also severely wounded several others. The house turned into a battlefield in the dark of night, and Nick fought relentlessly to protect his loved ones. However, everything ended tragically when Nick's family was captured by the gang. In a ruthless moment, Billy coldly opened fire, killing Helen, Lucas, and Nick. Several days later, Nick woke up in the hospital, filled with deep torment and self-blame, thinking of himself as the one responsible for the deaths of Helen and Lucas. But when the truth was revealed that Helen had not survived, while Lucas was still alive, hope flickered in him. Without hesitation, Nick rushed to his son's side, seeing Lucas lying motionless, deep in a coma. Overwhelmed with emotion, he looked at his beloved son, praying for a miracle. Nick sat by Lucas's bed, choking on his words as he apologized to his son, admitting that he had never been a good father. Meanwhile, Detective Wallace was shocked to discover that Nick had sneaked out of the hospital through the window. Nick returned to the house, now just the scene of a tragic crime. The next day, with the pain still deeply etched in his heart, he went to the bank and withdrew all the money from the family account. With no family left to protect, he decided to use that money to begin his quest for revenge. Nick then traced the gang's hideout with the help of his colleagues. He entered a nearby cafe, approached the barista, and asked about the gang. To gain the barista's cooperation, he offered a large sum of cash, hoping to get a lead. However, instead of cooperating, the barista ignored him and even insulted him with offensive words. Anger surged within Nick, and he lost control, starting to lash out at the barista. When a man sitting nearby tried to intervene, he quickly became another victim of Nick's fury. The cafe instantly erupted into chaos. Eventually, Nick gathered information about Billy's whereabouts and the address of Bones, the one who could supply weapons. He went to Bones' place, where Bones initially appeared indifferent and unwilling to get involved. However, Bones' attitude quickly changed when he saw the bag full of cash that Nick was carrying. Nick purchased several weapons, including a handgun, a mud-colored pistol, and enough ammunition to prepare for his plan. As Nick was preparing to leave, Bones unexpectedly revealed a shocking secret. Billy and Joe were his sons, and he knew Nick was planning to kill Billy. Bones' words made the atmosphere heavy, but Nick did not hesitate, his gaze still filled with determination. Bones calmly reassured Nick that he was incapable of causing any harm to him, and therefore allowed Nick to leave without resistance. Back home, Nick began to thoroughly check the newly purchased guns, testing and familiarizing himself with them. His focus and caution reflected his determination to prepare for what was coming. Then, Nick shaved off his injured hair. Afterward, he went to Brendan's place and found the jacket Brendan had worn the day he died. Without hesitation, Nick put it on, as if carrying with him the memories and an unshakable resolve. He continued his journey to the gang's hideout, determined to find their location. When he finally discovered the spot, Nick wasted no time using a shotgun to break down the door. The gangsters inside were startled, anxious about Nick's unexpected appearance. The gangster in the room froze, thinking Nick was dead. Without hesitation, Nick aimed his gun at the gangster's neck. In the tense moment, Nick found Billy's hideout and demanded the man to call him. Billy, realizing Nick was still alive, heard the gunshot signaling that his men had been taken down. At this point, Bones and his eldest son met. Bones assessed the situation and warned Billy that things were getting out of control. He sternly ordered Billy to stop all actions against Nick, as everything had crossed a line. Instead of heeding the warning, Billy ruthlessly opened fire, shooting his father dead right in front of the other man. Meanwhile, Nick approached the entrance to the hideout, determined to eliminate a gangster sitting in a car. He didn't give the man a chance to reload or escape. After taking down the gangster, Nick entered the building, ready to face whatever awaited him inside. Despite being killed multiple times, Nick remained resilient, taking down each gangster one by one until only Billy was left. As he approached, Billy sneered, thinking Nick had run out of weapons, and mocked him. "Look at you. You're no different from one of us." However, Nick unexpectedly pulled out another weapon from his pocket, leaving Billy stunned. Nick took down Billy, bringing everything to an end. Afterward, Nick returned home, sat down, and began watching old family videos. As the past flooded back, he sank into sadness and anticipation, knowing that his capture was inevitable. Detective Wallace came to see Nick and informed him that Lucas had started to move, but she also expressed concern that the boy might end up as a gangster, much like Nick in his final days. Wallace feared that Lucas, just 14 years old, would have no one to rely on while facing the immense psychological trauma he had endured. However, the pain within Nick was even deeper. The video contained everything he had suffered. With a heavy heart, all he could manage was a simple thank you for watching.